They told you to be good, to be meek, to be someone who pleases everyone. But what they did not tell you is that this goodness was forged as an invisible prison to control every step you take. Today, you will discover why good people turn into monsters and how you can prevent this from happening to you. We will dive into the darkest layers of the human mind, decoding secrets that Freud, Jung, and Camus revealed. Secrets society prefers to hide. Prepare yourself, because after hearing this, you will never see goodness the same way again. If topics like psychology, philosophy, and the darkness of the human soul interest you, subscribe to the channel now. They told you that being good is the supreme virtue. Since childhood, you were taught to obey, to smile even when you did not want to say yes even when everything inside you screamed no. Being good became more than a behavior. It became a role you need to play to be accepted. But no one explained that this role has a cost, and that when goodness is used as a mask, it can become the seed of something much darker. History is full of examples. People who started as exemplary citizens and ended up committing atrocities. And the question that cannot be ignored is, how does this happen? The transformation of a good person into an evil one is rarely sudden. It is a slow, almost imperceptible process, like rust that corrodes from within before appearing on the surface. Freud would call this the action of the repressed unconscious, a force that accumulates resentment, frustration, and anger until it finally explodes. Jung, on the other hand, would say that it is the shadow, the denied and hidden side of ourselves, that comes to life when ignored for too long. What we call goodness can, in reality, be the refusal to recognize our own most primitive instincts. Being good without awareness is dangerous because, deep down, it is not genuine goodness. It is submission. A person who has never learned to say no is not virtuous. They are vulnerable. And this vulnerability attracts abuse, injustice, and manipulation. Over time, the pressure accumulated within this good citizen becomes unbearable. That is when something breaks. And when it breaks, it is not goodness that remains. It is anger, resentment, and the desire for revenge that take over. Social psychology also shows us an even more disturbing aspect. Many of the worst atrocities in history were not committed by naturally cruel people, but by ordinary people who believed they were doing good for a greater purpose. Nazism, for example, was not sustained only by fanatics, but by millions of individuals who saw themselves as obedient and righteous. Evil, in this case, did not come as a conscious choice to be bad, but as the result of blindly following rules and orders without questioning the morality behind them. Camus said that man is capable of justifying any crime as long as he finds a good narrative to support it. And this is where goodness becomes dangerous, when it is manipulated to serve interests that are not truly good. Good people become evil when their morality is hijacked by ideologies, leaders, or systems that convince them that committing injustices is, in fact, a noble act. Blind goodness, without critical thought, is the perfect weapon to turn innocents into accomplices. But there is also a more intimate and silent path to this transformation. It is when a person's entire life is marked by giving themselves up for others. They sacrifice, remain silent, swallow grievances, abandon their own dreams, until one day, they realize that no one has ever done the same for them. What emerges then is not only sadness, but corrosive resentment, a desire to punish the world for accumulated injustice. This is where goodness turns into bitterness and bitterness into evil. Freud would call this the return of the repressed. Everything that was denied, suppressed, and repressed comes back with destructive force. Jung would add that when we do not integrate our shadow, when we pretend it does not exist, it does not disappear, but takes revenge. And this revenge is not controlled by reason. It is impulsive, explosive, and often devastating. A good person, after being betrayed, humiliated, or exploited for too long, can release this accumulated energy uncontrollably, hurting themselves and others. Therefore, what transforms good people into evil ones is not necessarily the presence of malice in their hearts from the beginning, but the absence of awareness about who they really are. It is the refusal to look inward, to confront their own shadows, and to set boundaries with the world. Goodness, to be real, must come with strength and discernment. Without this, it becomes a fragile mask that sooner or later shatters. And when it falls, what emerges can be far more dangerous than the evil of those who never pretended to be good. The first law to preserve your strength is brutal in its simplicity, but relentless in its application. If something or someone diminishes you, eliminate it. It seems obvious, but most people fail precisely here, because we were conditioned from an early age to tolerate small aggressions, disguised jokes, constructive criticism that silently erodes our self-confidence. We were trained to believe that enduring this is maturity, that swallowing offenses is a sign of balance. But in reality, each time you allow yourself to be diminished, you are giving away a piece of your psychological territory. And the territory, once invaded, is rarely regained without a fight. Diminishing someone is not just an explicit act of humiliation. It can be subtle, almost invisible. A change in tone of voice, a look filled with contempt, the choice of certain words that always place you one step below. This is how the cycle of self-devaluation begins. First, you start wondering if you perhaps deserve that attitude. Then you begin to adjust to avoid more criticism. Finally, you have become the shrunken version of yourself that person or situation wanted you to be. And when you reach this point, it is not just your self-esteem that is compromised. It is your entire identity. Eliminating what diminishes you is more than cutting ties with toxic people. It is also removing contexts, environments, and even internal habits that repeat the same dynamic. It could be a job that pays your bills but suffocates your potential and dims your brilliance. It could be a social circle that only validates your flaws and never acknowledges your victories. It could even be an inherited pattern of thought, an inner voice that always says, "You are not good enough." No matter the form, if it diminishes you, it drains your vital energy and must be removed. Often, what diminishes you does not present itself as an enemy. On the contrary, it disguises itself as care, friendship, or love. How many times has someone told you it is just for your own good before crushing your motivation? How many times have you found yourself asking permission to dream bigger, to wear something different, to act more boldly, just not to upset anyone? This is the most dangerous trap. When reduction comes disguised as affection, you feel guilty for wanting to break free. But here's the truth. Love that diminishes is not love. Eliminating requires courage because it means cutting ropes you believed were secure. It means being willing to face silence, loneliness, and even financial or emotional discomfort to preserve something more valuable, your integrity. Weak people cling to what diminishes them because they are afraid of emptiness. Strong people prefer emptiness over shrinking because they know that in this free space, there is a chance to rebuild themselves without the chains of devaluation. This rule also applies internally. You may be diminishing yourself every day without realizing it. It may happen when you constantly compare yourself to others and always see yourself at a disadvantage. It may happen when you sabotage yourself out of fear of failure. It may happen when you do not defend your ideas in a conversation because you think others know better. These small internal concessions are as lethal as external attacks. If you do not eliminate these mental habits, no external cut will ever be enough. The process of elimination is not impulsive. It is strategic. It is as Machiavelli would teach. Identify the threat, evaluate its influence over you, and when you decide to act, do so decisively and irreversibly. Because leaving half-open doors to what diminishes you is inviting the return of the poison. Once you free yourself, you must establish a fortified mental perimeter where only what strengthens you enters. Not out of arrogance, but out of self-preservation. In the end, this rule is a pact with your own strength. It is the act of saying to yourself and to the world, I will not accept less than what strengthens me. Those who follow this rule begin to walk differently, speak differently, and look differently. Because when you eliminate what diminishes you, only what makes you grow remains. And this presence is impossible to ignore. Most people speak as if they were still asking for permission to exist. Their words carry the weight of doubt, of maybe, and who knows. They put themselves in the world as if they were at the start of a race, insecure, waiting for someone to wave the flag to authorize their start. This is the speech of the beginning, fragile, hesitant, full of gaps for others to question, interrupt, or control. But if you want to be heard, respected, and remembered, you need to speak like the end. The end does not ask for approval. The end asserts. The end does not beg for space. It occupies space. When you speak like the beginning, your presence is interpreted as unfinished, as if it depends on external validation to consolidate. This is perceived immediately, even unconsciously, by everyone around you. People measure your value by the firmness with which you present yourself. A phrase spoken like the end sounds like a conclusion, like an unquestionable truth. It closes the subject and forces the listener to react within your frame, not outside it. In contrast, a phrase spoken like the beginning invites being shaped, corrected, or even discarded. Speaking like the end does not mean being arrogant or aggressive. It means speaking with clarity, conviction, and economy. It is eliminating words that undermine your authority. I think that, maybe, I do not know if. It is declaring instead of suggesting. When you say, this is how it is, you are defining the ground. When you say, I think it might be like this, you are handing the map for someone else to redraw. Whoever controls words controls perception. And whoever controls perception controls power. There is also a deep psychological aspect to this. Jung reminds us that the way we express ourselves reflects the state of our unconscious. Speaking like the beginning is often a symptom of insecurity, fear of rejection, or a hidden inferiority complex. Speaking like the end, however, is a sign of inner integration. You do not need the world to confirm what you already know about yourself. It is an external reflection of a solid internal center. Such people transmit an energy that is almost palpable. You cannot ignore them, even if you want to. The practical impact of this rule is enormous. At work, a professional who presents their ideas like the end is seen as a natural leader, even without a formal title. In relationships, those who speak like the end establish clear boundaries and are less likely to be manipulated. In negotiations, the end sets the price, while the beginning begs for a discount. This subtle difference in tone and structure of words can completely change how others behave around you. To adopt this posture, you need to train the mind before the mouth. This means truly believing in what you say before saying it. It is useless to try to imitate the firmness of the end if inside you are wavering. People sense the dissonance. Voice, posture, the pause before speaking, everything reveals what is happening internally. That is why the change begins with the clarity of who you want and what you are willing to defend. When this foundation is solid, speaking like the end becomes natural. It is also necessary to understand that the end is not about the quantity of words, but about quality and weight. The end is precise, direct, and lets silence become part of the message. Silence, in this context, is not emptiness. It is a field of gravity that pulls attention toward you. This is why leaders, strategists, and influential people speak less, but are more heard. The beginning needs to fill the air with explanations and justifications. The end lets words rest like heavy stones, difficult to move. Finally, speaking like the end is a matter of taking responsibility for the effect you cause. It is abandoning the childish posture of waiting for the world to read your intentions and recognize your value spontaneously. It is understanding that every interaction is a framing game, and that if you do not establish yours, you will fall inside someone else's frame. The end is the signature on the invisible contract of every conversation. Whoever speaks like the end dictates the rules. Whoever speaks like the beginning obeys. Choose which side you want to be on. Rejection is one of the most painful experiences for a human being. Since childhood, we are conditioned to seek it or avoid it at all costs because it touches directly on a primordial wound. The fear of not being accepted by the group, of being excluded from the tribe. In ancient times, being excluded meant death. That is why, biologically, rejection is still registered by our brain as a red alert. However, this same pain that paralyzes us can be used as a motor for transformation, as long as you change the meaning you attribute to it. While most see rejection as proof that they are not good enough, the strategic man sees a clear signal that he is on the path to becoming someone who does not fit within common mediocrities. Modern psychology and ancient philosophy agree on one point. It is not the event itself that defines us, but how we respond to it. When someone rejects you, it is not just an opinion. It is information. It is a reflection of that person's mind, values, and insecurities. Understanding this is the first step to removing the emotional weight from the situation. Rejection ceases to be a sentence and becomes a kind of map. It points to where you need to grow or, sometimes, where you should abandon any attempt to please. The problem is that most people react with wounded egos, not with strategic clarity. Turning rejection into fuel begins with a simple shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "Why was I not accepted?" ask, "What can I gain from this?" This is the moment your brain stops seeking self-pity and starts seeking solutions. Think of each rejection as a test of mental resilience. It strengthens your ability to act despite pain, to maintain focus despite frustration. Just as a muscle grows with micro-injuries, the mind grows when it learns to go through moments of refusal without bending. Historically, some of the greatest leaders, inventors, and philosophers were shaped by the fire of rejection. Nietzsche was ignored for most of his academic life. Van Gogh sold only one painting while alive. Steve Jobs was expelled from the very company he founded. Each of them could have accepted rejection as confirmation of failure, but they decided to turn it into proof of value. Rejection became the hammer that shaped their weapons. What differentiates an ordinary man from a man immortalized by history is exactly this: the strategic use of no as fuel to create something impossible to ignore. In the psychological field, there is a curious effect. When you face rejection with serenity and even gratitude, you remove its power to harm you. This is not just motivational theory. It is neuroscience. By reinterpreting the experience as something useful, your brain releases less cortisol, the stress hormone, and more dopamine associated with challenge and overcoming. In other words, you program your mind to see rejection as an opportunity for growth, not as a threat to survival. Of course, this does not mean that rejection is pleasant, or that you should pretend it does not hurt. On the contrary, feeling the pain is part of the process because it is the raw material of the fuel. The difference is that you do not consume it destructively. Instead of drowning in resentment, you burn it to move forward. It is like converting waste into energy. What was once a weight is now a driving force. The key is not allowing rejection to take root as identity. You are not a rejected person. You are a builder who used stones thrown at him to erect his own fortress. In practice, This means not constantly seeking explanations and validations from those who said no to you. The energy you would spend trying to convince someone of your value should be invested in creating undeniable value. This applies to business, relationships, and reputation. The no you receive today may be the same one that opens doors tomorrow, as long as you are ready to present a version of yourself so powerful that even those who rejected you must acknowledge it. Finally, understand that rejection and selection are the same coin. The world is made of doors that close and doors that open, and sometimes the door that closed was just protecting you from entering the wrong place. When you learn to see rejection as a natural filtration of fate, it ceases to be a burden and becomes a filter. Use each no as an injection of clarity, each humiliation as a reminder that you are in a game bigger than those who live seeking approval. In this game, rejection is not the end. It is the fuel that takes you to the next level. Now that you understand how to eliminate weakness, speak like the end, and turn rejection into fuel, it is time to act. Do not wait for permission, do not seek approval, and do not try to be understood. Become the unshakable version of yourself, the force that no one can move. If you are ready to continue this journey of psychological power and personal mastery, subscribe to the channel now, activate notifications, and start absorbing all the knowledge that will transform your mind into a silent and irresistible weapon. These two videos in front of you are not here by accident. And what if everything you believe about yourself is only a reflection of someone else's gaze? Click now on one of the videos beside you and start breaking that mirror. You will have to risk the click. So, which one will you choose?